Hello and welcome to today's webinar, The Top Supply Chain Secrets You Need to Succeed. Today it's going to be really exciting because we have two knowledgeable panelists online. We have Elish McCann and Andy Makem. And I'll tell you a little bit about them first. Elish has been the content manager here at Method CRM for the last 1.5 years and spends most of her time researching and creating content that helps small business owners succeed. With many Method customers being in manufacturing, wholesale, and retail, she's become an expert in the latest supply chain trends and best practices. Andy has enjoyed a lifetime in software business development as a programmer, implementer, and entrepreneur. He has grown, bought, and sold many business software companies and floated one on the public markets. He has worked with private and private equity owners. Today, Andy acts as a business development advisor to the software sector. In that capacity, he is working with SOS Inventory. So, welcome. And we are going to take questions at the end, but we are going to also ask questions to both Elish and Andy and hopefully be able to answer a lot of the things that may be on your mind. I went through the draft and it's a fun webinar, so hopefully you will learn a lot from these people. So, before we begin, we should take a poll. I like polls, so we will launch our very first poll. We might actually only have one poll. So, what challenges do you face when it comes to managing your supply chain? If you could just answer one of these answers, keeping costs low, managing your suppliers, product availability, or slow production times. And we'll keep this poll open for about, I don't know, 30 seconds. In the back, because I haven't mentioned, we do have Alana. She is going to be running the tech. So thank you so much for running the polls, looking at the questions, and running our slides for us today, Alana. Okay. I think we are doing well with our poll, so we'll keep it up maybe for another 10 seconds as we watch the percentage of votes come in. And then once we are done, we will share this poll with you. Okay, that looks great. Thank you everyone for answering that poll. We're going to show you our responsive, and it looks like keeping costs low. Yes, yes, that is a big challenge when managing your supply chain. That seems to be the one that wins. And then, of course, slow production times coming in second. And then at the same, we have managing your supplies and product availability. So thank you so much. It gives us an idea of our audience out there and what your challenges you face today. So let's get started. Let's go on to our very first question. And that is okay, I do know that sometimes this poll, it works great when we're doing our dry run, but for some reason, when we're doing it live, we can't see. There it is. There's our slides. Here we are. Okay. So our first question is, what should supply chains look like in 2021? And I'm going to ask Elish this first.
Hey everyone. When it comes to what your supply chain should look like in 2021, I think we really need to take a step back and take a back to the basics approach. 2020 was just a crazy year for people trying to get products and things selling out. And obviously there was so much toilet paper hoarding and all that jazz. So I think really in 2021, the simpler the better. So my advice for you all today is to make your supply chain shorter, because you're not only going to minimize your risk in terms of something going wrong, which it kind of always does. You're also going to have fewer things to coordinate and manage, which is going to give you excuse me, give you some more time back into your day that you can put into other initiatives that are going to better your bottom line and help you grow your business. Another kind of benefit of having short supply chains is Andy will talk a little bit about this later, but having them be shorter means less moving parts, less travel for your materials and your inventory coming in, which is inherently more sustainable. Which, as kind of Gen Z and the millennial demographic continues to take more kind of buying power in the market, I think this is going to be a really big factor for who kind of stays in business versus doesn't. I think consumers today are going to be, and in the future, are going to be investigating, the kind of environmental impact of your supply chain and using that as kind of a deciding factor on who they decide to purchase from and do business with on an ongoing basis. So I would just recommend, going simple, shortening your supply chain, and I think that's the way to go in 2021. Andy, what are your thoughts?
I think I completely agree with you, Rich. Thank you for such a clear, concise summary. I think I've been involved in manufacturing distribution from an ERP software standpoint for many years, as you can probably tell by looking at me. People I've been working with, the customers I've been working with, have really had a tough time. Extended, global value supply chains that became called, didn't they, have proved to be not as resilient perhaps as we hoped. If they could break, they did. Many of us have been embarrassed and found it problematic to have extended supply chains. So I think you're right, the shorter the better. One of the things we'll look at later is in the US here, the number of people that are bringing manufacturing back into the US is quite substantial. There's quite a rapid increase in the growth of manufacturing at the SME level as people bring the supply chains back in. And I think the things I'm finding with my customers is they need to increasingly view their suppliers as partners, as an extension of their business. You need strong visibility as to what's really happening. You can't just put a purchase order out and hope it's going to turn up on time. You need to have much greater collaboration tools to work with them. And you need to regard suppliers as partners. I think that's the biggest key. Sustainability has become and is a massive issue. I noticed there was a survey recently from the Oxford Economic Group, in which I think 86% of the many hundreds of respondents said that sustainable supply chains give you a competitive differentiator, which you think about is quite logical, really, isn't it? Because if you have a reputation for delivering and people can trust you, you will get more business than if you have a reputation for the alternative. So I'm with you all the way on that, Elish. I agree with all the points that you mentioned.
Great. And Andy, I know that you have some interesting thoughts on the impact of the pandemic on supply chains, and I bet you that's on a lot of people's minds. So what are your thoughts about pre and post pandemic?
Well, it's interesting that the survey you did was showing that managing costs is a key thing. In my world, the production that I've been involved in and the businesses I've run has been software development production. And for a long time, I wanted to keep it near to me because I could see what was happening. I could influence it quite quickly. And I was quite a reluctant advocate of moving it offshore. And when the cost differences became so substantial, I couldn't ignore it. And I did move it offshore. I found it did create quite a few challenges, not least of which were things you don't expect. I found there were cultural challenges very often. In some countries, you would put your production offshore. And in my case, it was software programming. Had highly educated workforce, had lower cost economy. It seemed to make sense. But the culture I found in some countries was they didn't like to tell you bad news. So they always told you it's going great, it's going great, it's going great, until the thing was due to be finished and it wasn't. And that was a real problem. And the only way we solved that was actually shipping one of our people out there to manage the project on the ground in the country to make it work for us. So it was problematic as it was. I think what we've found this last year, many of us, that cheapest is not always the best. If you don't have resilience in your supply chain, it can break at the first sneeze, really, and it has for many of us. So having resilience built in, it's often it's probably cheaper in the long term to have a resilient platform with alternatives available to you and better collaboration with your partners. It's probably cheaper to do that than actually have the thing break and have the problems that we've all seen this last year of people not being able to deliver. It isn't just little companies that have caught a cold, and it's not just now that it's come to the fore. I remember some years ago, Ford's production came to a stop. I remember this. There was floods in Thailand, and it wasn't Ford's direct suppliers that was a problem. It was their tier 2 suppliers. It was the suppliers to the suppliers. And the floods hit. They didn't have a visibility of their supply chain. All of a sudden, production in some plants came to a halt. You imagine that would be a big, big problem for a big car company. More recently, in this time round, we've seen Coca-Cola. Did you notice in the news that Coca-Cola have had to stop production of their product tabs because they haven't got enough cans to put it in? They are short 10 billion cans. That's a lot of cans, isn't it, really? So they've caught a cold recently. In the UK, I'm not sure you have it in the US, you have Campbell's Soups here. Campbell's Soups found that demand for their soup increased rapidly as people were at home and like snacking and wanted quick lunches, and they couldn't keep up. And as a result, they haven't been able to deliver, and they've lost market share. So the big boys, so it's not just us SMEs who have been challenged by this. The big boys have caught a cold as well. So that's it's not really reassuring. It's just difficult times, isn't it? So yeah, that's pre-pandemic we were chasing the dollar, trying to get the lowest cost we could. Maybe we didn't pay too much attention to resilience. It's I can understand why. I think we've all learned a lesson over this last year that perhaps we need to be a little bit more cautious. There's a saying the military have, isn't there, that a plan is only a plan until the first shot is fired. Then the plan goes to pot and it's all down to training. And it's a bit like that in business, really, isn't it? You can build all the plans and business plans you like, but if you haven't got sustainability and resilience, you can guarantee it'll fall over because business is full of surprises. That's really the joys of running a business. And I think in terms of infrastructure planning, I think those of you who are sitting in Texas who suffered all the traumas of the last week or two, well, I think they could have certainly done with some better infrastructure planning and some resilience and some thinking about what might happen rather than perhaps always going for the cheapest first. But I'll leave it alone. I'll try and not get political. We'll leave it there.
Okay. So looking forward as we progress through and past the pandemic, what changes do you expect to see with supply chains post-pandemic? Andy.
You going in, or okay?
No, Andy, take it away.
Okay. My picture's frozen, but that's all right. It's it's not a bad view of me. Never mind. I think it is, as we said earlier, we're going to see more resilient, shorter supply chains. The US manufacturing companies I'm working with now, instead of bringing parts in from Taiwan and elsewhere, they're now seeing if they can source them locally because they feel they are more, the supply is more predictable. They can be on the phone, they can go and visit, they can do all the stuff they need to do to make sure that the stuff is there and it's still going to come through. So the resilience is going to become more built in. I came across a story the other day about a very recent story here from an automotive supplier, and this sort of sums it up quite nicely. I think it says, we were so focused on the local national news, we didn't see the forecasted rise in automotive sales in China and South Korea. So when COVID hit, we stopped manufacturing and we slashed inventories, and in the short term, we were applauded for our foresight. But now, as sales escalate in Asia, we are working 24/7 to satisfy back orders, and in our short-sightedness, we laid off critical workers in manufacturing that we cannot get back, and every day is now a struggle. So it's been a tough old time, and we're learning new tricks. But I think the post-pandemic world will be shorter supply chains, better visibility, more use of collaboration tools, regarding your suppliers as part of your business, have glass walls between them so you can see what's going on. It's a much more collaborative, open world, and thank goodness we have the digital economy and all the digital tools we have these days to help with that, because the technology is now right to allow us to embrace this open business approach.
Great. Thank you so much. So what tips do you have for smaller and mid-sized businesses when it comes to supply chain management? Okay, Elish, it's your turn. You can talk.
Yeah, for sure. So I think just echoing all the points that Andy kind of said earlier, I think the simpler your supply chain, the better. Again, you're going to minimize your risk. It's also really smart to kind of create, your supply chains in a way that they're agile and very adaptive. Since especially in the pandemic environment that we're currently in, things are changing so fast and like no one's able to predict them. So I would just say always have a backup plan, whether that's additional suppliers that you can start working with really quickly if need be, or alternative raw materials you can use to create, you know, a similar but different version of the products that you sell. I think this is going to ensure that you have inventory and you're not missing out on any potential sales or losing any customers due to kind of a lack of product availability. My second tip for kind of the small and mid-sized businesses on the call today is that, again, it's really important to just treat your suppliers like partners. So traditionally, we have thought of suppliers as kind of, you know, people we need to negotiate price with and production times and payment terms and all that kind of stuff. But what's kind of the new best practice is something called value-focused supplier relationship management. And that is really just, you know, flipping the switch from competing with your suppliers to actually cooperating and collaborating with them. Kind of the perks of, you know, taking this approach is that you're creating a win-win situation for both yourself and your suppliers, and you guys are working towards a shared goal. There's some benefits too, that by, you know, a little give and take and everyone's happy with, you know, the price and the payment terms and stuff like that, you are going to get a little bit of preferential treatment from the suppliers. So, you know, maybe that's an earlier heads up if something's going awry. Maybe that's some suggestions around product development, about maybe some efficiencies or cost savings that you can, you know, achieve by changing the design slightly. And again, maybe it's faster delivery times. So there's lots of wins there, and I think that's definitely going to be the way of the future. Even again, going off Andy's point about technology and using that to collaborate, I think sharing, you know, information and product data, I think that's the new norm today, and that's just going to get both you and your supplier farther and let you guys grow together. So those are kind of my thoughts.
Andy?
I couldn't have put it better. That's very good. Yes, thank you, Keelish. I noticed that the God bless the consultancy practices, they've come up for a term for it, haven't they? They call it now reshoring, and no doubt they're charging vast fortunes to their client bases to explain what it means and how they do it. At least it's TLA, at least it's not a three-letter acronym. But they're reshoring. We've seen it quite a lot, really. Interesting enough, it has ripples, doesn't it? I mean, I'm here today representing SOS. Some of you perhaps are SOS customers already, or maybe considering it. You know, SOS is software for small SMEs in manufacturing, distribution in these worlds. And you know, we sort of expected going into the pandemic, when the horror of the developments around about March last year became real, we were thinking we will probably see a downturn in business. That's what we were thinking. We were thinking that, you know, all businesses are going to be hit hard, SMEs will be hit hard. And what we found in practice, that yes, there was turmoil and some businesses were hit hard, but equally there were many winners. And many, you know, with the businesses coming, the reshoring, more manufacturing coming to the US, we found SOS continue to grow through the pandemic, which wasn't expected. It's been very, you know, an incredibly beneficial and a lucky break for us. But the whole marketplace and the people who supply the marketplace, even us as software providers, have benefited from this reshoring, and it's increased manufacturing in the US. So, you know, post-pandemic, it isn't all, you know, it isn't all bad news. And I noticed recently, I as a child, you know, I was brought up with train sets and car racing kits, and I forget where we are in America, but we had car racing kits called Scale Extra, where we'd race around the track and so forth. And I noticed that the supplier, the manufacturer of these car racing kits, Hornby, had been having a really terrible time of late. You know, the kids these days want electronic toys; they don't want train sets and so forth. But with the pandemic, what they found is there's been people being at home, and people my age being at home with nothing to do. We've been playing with our train sets again and our car racing kits, and sales for Hornby have gone through the roof. And it's turned a loss-making business into a profit-making business, a highly profitable business, almost overnight. So there's been some astonishing wins throughout all this, and astonishing stories. You know, I remember seeing a champagne company who was providing the champagne for all the summer events in the UK, Ascot and Henley Regatta and all these posh affairs where people turn up in top hats and they buy champagne by the bucket load, and that was their business model. And of course, there's been no events. But what they found is they spawned a business for providing champagne online for weddings. So weddings still went on, but the people couldn't meet and have their guests at weddings. So everybody got a wedding pack. And in the wedding pack, you got a bottle of champagne. So they built a new business that grew faster than their traditional business, providing online champagne for distributed wedding events. And their business grew like topsy doing that. So there we are. You know, the beauty about SMEs is they can, you know, if you're plugged into a marketplace and you see the trends, you can turn your business on a sixpence. Big companies can't do that. And there's been loads of exciting stories about people who've actually managed to turn their business around and do something completely different, something completely unexpected, and find that this is a winning formula for the future. So yes, it's been tough. Yes, it's been horrible. But yes, it's been a world of opportunity. And you know, market turmoil is interesting actually. I've run a good number of businesses over my long business life, and I found when I've started a business when the market has been in turmoil, I found it to be a land of some opportunity. And I haven't always done well, but I've mostly done well. I've also made sufficient mistakes, but you know, mostly I found growing and markets in turmoil to be quite forgiving. So that's me. I'm just rambling now, but there we are. In terms of tips for small businesses, get your supply chain support, small, get it visible, look at the collaboration tools. We'll probably talk about some of those in a moment.
Yes, totally. And that's okay. I was going to bring up the fact that, oh, I had a racetrack as a child, but then I would completely derail this webinar. So let's go on to the next question because given the pandemic, our reliance on technology has never been more apparent. This is my life now. This is how everybody sees me in my living room. So what role does technology play in strengthening one's supply chain? Let's start with Andy.
Well, you know, I'm of the generation that was called baby boomers. You know, I was born in that particular generation. I don't know where we're up to now, from millennials into Generation Z or whatever it happens to be, but I'm a baby boomer. And I notice now, because I'm Zooming all the time on these webinars and other ways of communicating with my customers, I'm now called a baby Zoomer. I thought that was quite interesting. So there we are. Communication is fairly key. You know, it's interesting actually in the last year to watch the valuation of the major airlines around the world plummet, and the valuation of companies like Zoom increase exponentially. And I think Zoom at one point, it might still be, was worth more than many national airlines. So it's amazing how quickly the market turns. But you know, Zoom is a great communication tool. We tend to use it. I tend to work quite a lot with European businesses bringing product into the US. That's a lot of what I do right now. It means that my days start fairly early because of the time difference, which can be a bit annoying for my wife. But you know, having these superb communication tools, Zoom, webinar, whatever it happens to be, there's so many of them that you can instantly just dial in, see people, they can show you plans, you can share documents. It just makes life so easy. You know, I'm working with a business right now it's a French-owned business in Barcelona, bringing product into the US. That's interesting. My conversations with them, we sit in a meeting like this, it's like we're all sat in the same room. But one of the owners is in Paris, the other one's in Barcelona, and here I am down in South Carolina, and we're just one virtual business. And you wouldn't know that we're all over the globe. So you know, these sharing information, collaboration tools are very much the way forward. And it allows, you know, us to engage with our suppliers as partners. And there's many tools like this. You know, there's not just the webinar type tools, but and if you just go and, you know, go into Google and type collaboration tools, there's all sorts, and there's loads of them. We use Slack just to become part of a team for team building. That's quite good. I've seen that. Many people use Skype or Microsoft Teams. There's all sorts of stuff. There's great software now for supply chain planning and supply chain mapping, so you can actually see your supply chain, see a graphic of your supply chain, see where the weaknesses are. There's all sorts of great stuff. And because of the joys of software as a service pricing and cloud computing, these things don't cost an arm and a leg. On a monthly basis, they're really quite affordable. So, it is a time of great change, a time of great opportunity, and you need to really be researching and looking at stuff that's out there that can help you. Because if there's stuff out there that can really help the sector, if you're not grasping it, your competitors are. So you just need to keep ahead. And you also need to be watching what's happening just over the horizon. Watch what's happening with what the big boys are doing, because the stuff that they're doing today will be with us tomorrow. But I'll talk more about that in a moment.
Great. Yeah, I totally agree, Andy, with your points. I think what's really important with supply chains in 2021 and beyond is, having the right technology. Team could all over the world, they could be working remotely, and I think what's really critical is to have that real-time access to information that's up to date. So I know at Method, one of our top features that our customers love is our two-way QuickBooks sync, and that's just because every member of your team can be empowered with kind of the critical sales and customer information that they need to excel and do their job right. So kind of just going off that, I think mobile solutions are going to be absolutely the future of supply chain technology. When you kind of think about, your critical key team players, they're not just sitting at their desk all day. They could be, in the warehouse, tracking down someone's order, checking on inventory supplies, maybe even helping out with deliveries if it's a crazy day. And I think it's really a shame and honestly a missed opportunity to not equip them with the information they need to make really high quality business decisions that are going to drive your company forward and help you grow faster. Another thing I think we're going to see even more from small and mid-sized businesses is workflow automation. So I know this word kind of has a little bit of stigma. It's typically thought of as enterprise technology and can be a little bit scary, but I think the potential there is unlimited. And if you are a little bit nervous about taking on workflow automation, there are lots of tools like Method CRM is one example that are created for small businesses to help automate their workflows. So this can be anything from order fulfillment to your sales process. And yeah, they are designed for small businesses in mind. My advice for if you want to start leveraging workflow automation, which I highly recommend, is to start slow and build your way up. So just think about, the tasks that your team is doing that they don't enjoy, something like manual data entry, copying information from spreadsheets over to a different document, and try and automate those. So Zapier is a great way to connect kind of your standalone solutions to eliminate that kind of manual work and put more team back in your team's day. More time back in your team's day. Yeah, I think those are kind of my thoughts right now. Yeah.
Thanks, Inish. Thank you so much. Always very insightful. I remember as the internet was coming along, I was following a very, very good manufacturing guru, really, in those days, an American called Hal Mather. He's retired long since now. You won't find him around today. But he used a phrase in those days where he said, and you do realize you're now competing with the best in the world in your own backyard. And we've been doing that for a while now, haven't we? So, getting our businesses right and as good as they can be is more important now than ever before. With SOS, I've been focusing on working with small manufacturing and distribution businesses. Very often working with QuickBooks and having some spreadsheets to try and pad out the functionality or cope with the shortcomings in QuickBooks' stock control, inventory, manufacturing, all the rest of that side. And building a business around spreadsheets seems a great idea, and I've done it so many times. It's great because it's so affordable, they're flexible, they're easy, they're analytical. It's wonderful to start with. But before you get too long, you're building islands of information that don't synchronize and don't join up. And it becomes counterproductive very quickly. What you want is a single integrated business, all facing in the same direction, an entire business, working on one version of the truth. And you don't get that if you've got multiple spreadsheets, a spreadsheet running sales, running purchasing, running inventory. You end up with that horror, which is you get duplicated data that's actually inconsistent. You could get a sales quantity showing in the sales spreadsheet of 15, in the purchasing spreadsheet shows 25, and the inventory system it shows 35. They could all be right because it could be timing issues, or it could be keying error. You don't know. But before too long, spreadsheets become very problematic if you're running your business on them. And what we see in SOS is people coming to SOS as they're moving off spreadsheets. And I would urge you, if you're still running your business on spreadsheets, you really need an integrated business system. If you haven't got an integrated business system that you can rely on delivering you one version of the truth, you've got bigger problems than supply chain challenges right now. So the first thing I'd urge you to do is to look at integrated business software for small companies and get that right, get the foundation, get the backbone right, and then we can try and embellish the rest. So that was the first thing I would say. There's all sorts of technology out there right now that can help. One of the things I'm working with right now is an online trading platform, which retailers can use to liaise with and to buy from their suppliers. This is particularly in the world of fresh produce, which is quite a difficult world to operate in because the stuff, fresh produce by its nature has a very small shelf life. But you'd be amazed in that world how paper is still so profligate. I was talking to a large grower this last week, who the way they trade with their retailers is they send out a paper 23-page catalog. The retailer then has to look at it, look roughly what he wants to buy, then phone them up and say, have you really got these still in stock? And they are, that's price. Well, the price changes by the day. Well, what have you got? And then negotiate a price and come down. Then someone at the supplier's got to key it into the ERP system and ship it, and away it goes. What a 1970s way of doing business. And the online trading platform I'm involved with provides an online catalog so the retailer can see immediately what's available now, what is his price today, press a button and buy it now, and it electronically goes straight into the ERP system at the supplier. So we don't need the people keying the stuff in. And these keying clerks are charging the cost of business over here about what, 25,000 a year. And if you've got 5 of those, you might only need 2, so you're saving 60,000 a year just on that. And that's just one small part of improving your supply chain visibility, collaboration, partnership. And that piece of software, it costs like, I don't know, $50 a seat or something like this. It's and for that niche market of fresh produce supply and distribution, it is going to be an incredible success in that piece. And that's just one small element of all the technologies out there that we should be embracing. So in your sector, you need to look at all the tools you could possibly use to help streamline your businesses, drive your costs down, improve your visibility, build glass walls, and treat your suppliers as partners.
Well, that's great. And continuing on that train of thought, then, like with all the technology and services available, if you can help us decide what we can look for in tech that supports our supply chain for small and medium businesses. Let's start with Andy.
Okay, well, the ERP, Enterprise Resource Planning Software, has an incredibly bad press. And for SMEs, that's probably true, because most ERP systems are designed and written for big companies, and they don't downscale well. They're large, they're cumbersome, they're expensive to put in, and many of the major ERP providers seek to provide a slimline version for a smaller company to use, which is really just a lesser front end on this monster beast of a product. And you try and put it in, it will kill you. It's actually what you don't want to do. And it's only in recent years that flexible, friendly, easy to use ERP software, business software, integrated business software, is starting to become available for SMEs. And I first came across SOS when a friend of mine in the UK phoned me up about 18 months ago and said, "Hey Andy, I've just had a bit of a revelation. I've just put a system into a gin distillery, And it took me 4 weeks. I said, "Go on, Barry, you're kidding me. You know, ERP projects, you've done it in 6 months, it's a miraculous achievement. In 4 weeks, you kidding me?" He said, "Yeah, this thing's called, it's called SOS. It's so intuitive, it's so easy to use. I got it up and running in 4 weeks. And it is incredible. The customer's so happy. They had QuickBooks, they have spreadsheets. I put this thing in, and it's really so easy to use. And you should speak to SOS, Andy, and see if you can help them." Well, I did, and I am, and here I am. So, SOS is one of a number of players who have easy to use, easy to implement ERP software for very small companies that will not kill you. It's affordable, like $20 a seat per month sort of price. It's just, it's loose change almost to buy it. And that will create your joined up environment. That will create one version of the truth. That will give you the backbone to your business on which you can then look at supply chain management, all the other extensions that you've got. So ERP is there for small businesses. Beware of what you buy, though. SOS is really good. I'm here to today represent them. There are others who are also good, but do beware of the big boys coming down. Google around a bit and have a good look to see what there is. Out there's a product called NetSuite, and many people look at it, and it's a cloud-based product, and it's intended to be for SMEs. Well, if you look around, you'll find there's a publication, a book that you can buy called NetSuite for Dummies, which means NetSuite is really complicated, actually, and this is a way of making it simpler. Well, if there's a dummies guide for the product you're thinking of buying, don't buy it, because it's absolutely not for you, because it is a complicated monster hiding under a simple menu system. So, do make sure you buy something suitable for your business. If you're talking to a supplier that you think's right for them, and they've got some quotes and references on their website, when you phone them up, phone up the A widget company in Kalamazoo and speak to Herbert Jones, the CEO, and say, "What do you really think of it?" Find out really what you're buying here, because it's easy to buy the wrong system, and it can be very damaging for your business if you do. SOS is a damn good system if you're in manufacturing distribution for SMEs, particularly with its QuickBooks seamless interfaces. But there are others, but just, ERPs right now, and the technology's finally got right for SMEs to use it. And I've seen so many projects where an SME's tried to put in the big monster and they wish they'd never started. So, that's my take on the ERP and technology.
Thank you. What about you, Elish?
Yeah, no, I've heard some, I guess, horror stories for small businesses trying to implement ERP, so I totally get what Andy's talking about. I think, we're kind of shifting from, looking for one software solution that can do it all to kind of, specialty, like best in breed solutions that are really, really good in one area, and kind of building a collection of those, and then using tools like Zapier or even native integrations between solutions to connect them and their data sources, so that everyone on your team, has up-to-date information. Just going off that, again, I think, when you're looking for supply chain technology, looking for something on the cloud is really smart, given, remote work can happen in an instant these days, and being able to, manage your inventory remotely and keep track of orders and stuff like that is critical. I think beyond that, with probably your suppliers not being right next door to you, it's very helpful to be able to give them access to this information and have them working on the same tools with you, so there's not a lot of friction there, and so that collaboration is really, really easy. Also, I know it's really unfortunate, but kind of, since the pandemic has started, there's been like a lot of ransomware attacks happening on local servers as well. So, switching to the cloud if you're not already on it, or looking for solutions on the cloud, might help increase data security for your business. And obviously that's super critical these days.
Great. Yeah. So if I learned anything about software, it's like a quote from Andy's, get software that isn't out to kill you. So I'm all for that. I don't want any software that's out to kill me. So let's say what's next for supply chain best practices going forward? Andy, what do you think?
I mentioned earlier about watching what the big boys are doing, and you've all roll your eyes when I say artificial intelligence because everyone's talking about it. But let me explain a little bit more about it. Um, I've lived through what I've done about 40 years now since I started writing my first, what we now call an ERP system, donkeys years ago, and I had a lifetime in this world. And I saw the mobile phone opportunity come, and I ignored that foolishly. I could have made a bundle out of that. I saw the internet come and was confused by it until it came and changed my life. And that was the second revolution it is, and I didn't grasp that business opportunity either, so stupid me. And the next one that's going to hit us is artificial intelligence. And Microsoft have called it the new oil, which is that dramatic and what it's going to do for us. And it is quite interesting, isn't it? I mean, it's already seeping into our lives. You may have examples of how it's working with you. I noticed this morning, last evening, when I set off to go to the shops to get some bread for our tea, my phone said it's 14 minutes to the public supermarket. Well, that's presumably because most evenings I go to the public supermarket to buy bread, and it knows, and it's intuitively said that you're probably going there. And here's a helpful hint: there's no traffic on the way. It's 14 minutes to get there. In the mornings, it says it's 11 minutes to my daughter's school. So there's a small example of how artificial intelligence is trying to help us. We have the other side of it, where in my house, in almost every room, I've got this Alexa device that's clearly listening to everything I say, because if I say Alexa, it sparks into life. So that's interesting, isn't it? Big Brother is watching. But there we go. The thing about ERP and MRP systems, as they were, they still are fundamentally closed loop systems. If you think about it, you have sales orders creating demand, you have the stock and the production converting materials in the middle, you know, supply of materials and sources and coming in this end, and it's fundamentally closed loop. You know, in the ERP system, you have your orders that you know about, you know, forecasts, which is your best guesses. You have the production that's going on. You might have a master production schedule of what you're planning to make. You have your purchases that you know about, and perhaps some purchase forecasts, and that's as good as it gets. And within that, you do your planning and try and run your business. But it's not really plugged into the outside world at all, is it? And in there, you may have purchase orders for a supplier, let us say in Costa Rica, and you're hoping to get some goods on a boat to help support your production efforts in a month or two. And all of a sudden, the AI system recognizes there's going to be a hurricane that's going to hit Costa Rica, and the AI system recommends to you and your ERP system that your purchase order might be in jeopardy, and perhaps you should replan it, and perhaps you should move it to Mexico because there's no hurricane there, and that would allow you the assured supply that you need. And in fact, it might recommend to you that there is already, we can see from what our analysis, there is product available in Mexico for you, and would recommend these suppliers. So the world of ERP, as we know it, is going to change markedly because it's going to become plumbed into the real world. And that's going to apply to all of us. And that's quite revolutionary and transformational. And you know, it's going to have a dramatic impact on all of us. So always watch what's happening with the big boys. They're all talking about AI right now, investing tons of money in it. You know, the thing about technology I found over the years is incredibly democratizing. What is expensive out there today is going to be cheap as chips and affecting all of us tomorrow. You know, it's just an ever-changing world, and so just you know, if you're running an SME, as well as all your challenges, just keep plugged into your sector, talk to your trade shows, your trade bodies, keep an eye on what's coming next, watch what the big boys are doing, because they'll be here quicker than you think.
I think too, the same can be said, Andy, for the industrial Internet of Things. Right now, that's really, yeah, enterprise kind of technology, and I'm personally really excited about, you know, the efficiencies that small businesses can create once that technology kind of moves down the market a little bit in terms of price. So I think that's one thing that small and mid-sized businesses will be starting to be, I guess, leverage more and more. Second kind of trend that I'm expecting, you know, to emerge in the next few years is, you know, today on the webinar, we talked a lot about supply chain visibility. And while that's super important, definitely for your internal teams, I think we're going to see kind of this shift to where we're including our customers in the supply chain process and notifying them about, some companies already do it, but when an item is in production and if it's been held up and stuff, I think that's going to be the new kind of standard for customer service and customer experience. We see some companies already sending really awesome gamified, your order is on its way type emails. And I think it's just going to get a little bit more granular, and people are just going to have deeper insights, and that will be kind of the new norm, if you will.
Just one last anecdote, which just occurred to me as you said that. We do get great information about shipments and what's happening. I mean, Amazon is quite remarkable, isn't it, the way it tells you what's coming. And at 8:59 last night, my daughter, she consumes books at an alarming rate, which is a wonderful trait, isn't it? She reads and reads and reads, and she's been waiting for this particular book to come, and it was due to come yesterday, Wednesday. It was due to come yesterday, and they said it would come by 9 o'clock. And my wife looked at the clock; it was 8:59. And said it hasn't come, and it went ding dong. The doorbell rang, and it came at 9 o'clock. That is quite incredible. How found that all the way from where we placed the order, all the way from shipment from Ohio, all the way down here into South Carolina. It's just quite, I love technology. It's been part of my life, for 40 years. But there we are. Happy daughter.
Wow, that's amazing. If only like telephone companies can tell you when they're coming in to install something and be that exact, that'd be amazing. Anyway, sorry, I don't want to go off track. So thank you to both of you, to Elish, to Andy. And before we go on to questions, maybe you can talk a little bit more about your respective companies. I guess we can start off with Elish if you'd like to talk about Method CRM.
Yeah, for sure. So I'll start with, I guess, the exciting part of our offer. So anyone who registered for today's webinar is eligible for a 25% off discount off any of our annual plans. So that's some pretty big savings if you are interested in trying Method CRM out for yourself. We offer a free 30-day trial, no commitment, no contract, anything like that. And kind of the why behind why you should try us is one, we have great workflow automation capabilities that you can really tailor to your own processes. Every small business is unique, so we're not going to force you to do things a certain way. We kind of mold around your current processes and help increase productivity and improve efficiency with what you're already doing. Second, we are the #1 QuickBooks CRM. So we have an awesome two-way QuickBooks sync that is, a surefire way to save your team some time. And then lastly, in terms of partnering better with your suppliers, we offer online portals that make this really easy. And they can also be used for your customers to kind of, elevate your customer experience and keep them coming back. So yeah, that's about Method.
Thank you.
Very good too. Andy. Good too, yeah. Workflow is great, isn't it? I want to talk about it. Workflow is superb. It's been so transformational in so many companies. But let me talk about SOS. The other thing that Barry said to me when he put this system in, it wasn't easy to. He said, Andy, you can't believe the level of customer support. I could get them whenever I wanted, and they were so helpful. And he was in England, they were in the US. So he says, I've never seen support like this, Andy. Andy, you and I have had 30 years, 40 years doing this work. I've never seen support like it. And that's a hell of a differentiator. Weapons grade support from SOS. So SOS, if you've got QuickBooks Online and you're a manufacturer or distributor, you will know that the stock control system is inadequate, and you're probably supplementing it with spreadsheets and point solutions and creating the islands of information that are going to eventually unpick your business. And you need an integrated business system aimed at SMEs, for manufacturing, for distribution, etc. You must look at SOS. There are others, but you must look at SOS. It's wonderful to have a 15% off offer. We can't match your 25% because we're mean, but 15%, there we are. I don't in truth actually think price is an issue when it comes particularly to ERP, but there's an offer there if you wish to take it. Getting the right solution that's right for your business with stellar weapons grade customer support, when almost everyone gets it in 3 to 6 weeks, well, that's what SOS do, and that's why I'm so proud to be associated with them. They do a great business. And I've never known, they've got thousands of customers. I'm astonished at how happy. They managed to create raving fans of their customers. I've been in ERP all my life, and that has been a dream that I've never yet achieved. So I'm very jealous. But there we are. I'm representing them today. It's a superb solution. You should look at it. Go have a free trial. Honestly, it's worth it. It'll transform your business.
Great. Thank you so much, Andy. So you're looking for raving fans as well. So maybe we can plug your website. This is where you want to go if you want to get his autograph. Anyway, I'm kidding. So let's go on to our question and answer time. Thank you so much to both you, Elish and Andy. And I do believe that there we can answer a couple questions. If you have any questions that you would like to ask our panelists, by all means, in the right hand, you'll see the go to webinar control panel, and you'll find the questions box and you can type them in, and then we are monitoring them as well. And we can answer them. You can pose your questions to Andy, to Elish. Don't pose your question to me because I know nothing about ERP. I am just the host of this webinar. But if I have any questions about method, I can answer that as well. We do have a wonderful question, or actually not even a question, a comment from one of actually a method user who has a client right now who's getting off spreadsheets. So there you go, listening to Andy and going to Method CRM to collaborate with their suppliers and customers, which is important, collaborating with your suppliers and customers. So it's a fun project for them. So that's a great comment as well. And so if you have any questions, bring them in. I have a question. Basically, you wondered if the North America has Campbell's soup. I know Canada does. I don't know about the US. Do you know, Elish? I think we
I
do.
don't
Or is that, maybe it's more of a European thing? I had no idea. We do have a QuickBooks Online question. We don't have to talk about soup. I have QuickBooks Online and SOS Inventory. So, what would Method add to our system? This is a great question.
Ooh,
We
good
could ask
question.
Elish.
Yeah, I can definitely answer that. So SOS Inventory is obviously a great solution. Same with QuickBooks Online. Kind of where Method, our bread and butter really is kind of the pre-sales kind of workflows. So we'll help you with things like lead management and kind of creating estimates for your customer. I'm not sure what kind of industry you're in. Managing customers, we take kind of like care, I guess, of the front of house workflows and make sure that no leads are slipping through the cracks. And I think our workflow automation capabilities are a little bit more flexible and geared towards helping teams across your business beyond just inventory. So yeah, I think that's kind of where Method fits into the picture there.
Thank you so much, Elish. Also got a message from Fran that Campbell soup is the soup standard in the US. So this is great to
There we
know.
go.
I'm learning all sorts of things. How does Method and SOS integrate together?
Yeah, that's a great question. So currently, our teams are going back and forth about kind of developing some sort of integration directly between Method and SOS. So you're going to have to stay tuned for that. At Method, we do have a REST API if you can leverage if you are, a coder or a developer to kind of connect those tools. But there's nothing direct as of yet. But stay tuned, and hopefully there will be in the future.
Ooh, this is a good question. Does Method CRM manage supply purchasing workflow and communications? That might be one that do you know that answer, Elish?
I think we'd have to double check on that one. I think out of the box, we may not support that at this time. But the great thing about Method is it is a no-code platform that you can tailor to your needs. And we have a team of consultants who can help you do that if need be. Yeah, so the possibilities are kind of limitless, but I'll have to double check, Russ, I'll get back to you via email about that functionality.
And just to let you know, we do have another question coming up, but this webinar is being recorded and will be sent to you via email. So if you have any other question that we don't cover, feel free to email us or feel free to get back to us or in contact either Andy or Elish of SOS or Method, and we would be quite happy to answer your question. We do have one over here about for Andy. How can SOS integrate with Shopify?
It does. It's a standard plugin for SOS. It's there now. If you go on the SOS website, you'll see it. And if you don't have it, if you speak to SOS, it's available. It's there. It works.
Thank you. And this is a great question. Is Method integrated with QuickBooks Online then? And if so, what things sync? Elish.
Yeah, for sure. So Method is fully integrated with QuickBooks Online. And I think we sync over most fields from QuickBooks Online. Errol, I know you wrote a great article about those specific fields. I don't know if you want to maybe fill William in there.
Do you remember when I wrote that article? I'm in charge of the help center. I write a lot of articles, so I'm not too sure. But however, QuickBooks Method does integrate with QuickBooks Online, and it is a two-way automatic sync, as Elish said. And we do sync with the majority of tables and fields that QuickBooks has. There are a few things we don't sync with, but that actually is on our help center as well. But for the most of it, whether it be all your transactions, whether it be your customers, your vendors, your employees, and any workflow that you have there, we do sync with QuickBooks. Whatever QuickBooks allows us to sync with, then we will sync with it. There are some restrictions that even QuickBooks doesn't allow any of its third parties, software developers to sync with, but the majority of them we do. So that's a great question. And it's hard to get into all the different specifics, but for the most of it, we do. Great, thank you. What
To
is the?
William.
I think we
Sorry.
have a question. Sorry, did you say something, Elish?
Yeah, sorry. I was just going to say, just following up on William's point, I just double checked and pulled them all up because I don't have them personally memorized yet. But it looks like accounts, classes, customers, employees, estimates, invoices, payments, purchase orders, and sales receipts and vendors all sync back and forth between Method and QuickBooks Online. And then there's a few different fields that just sync with it. So we can definitely follow up with that article. Thanks, William.
I do have a question about the difference between the basic and the pro plan, and I'm not too sure who's that directed towards. I don't know. I know our pricing plan. I don't, Andy, do you have a do you know if this is directed towards you? If you have a basic or
Well,
pro
they
plan?
have SOS have tiered pricing, and if you look on the website, it's quite helpful. It tells you what you get for the tiered pricing from the different levels. I personally don't know myself. I can look at the website now and tell you, but equally anyone can look at the SOS website and have a look. So if you look into pricing, it tells you what the tiered pricing is. It's either ridiculously cheap, quite cheap, or very cheap. You know, it's whichever way you look at it, and they have different functionalities and things you can have. And if you look at the website, it's all detailed there. It's all quite clear.
And for Elish, did you want to tackle the pricing question?
Yeah, for sure. So both our contact management and CRM Pro plans, they come with the QuickBooks Sync. That's something native. We don't charge extra for that or anything. Um, you get a few extra functionalities with CRM Pro, so you can create estimates, sales orders, invoices, sales receipts, that kind of thing. You get a little bit more in terms of contact management as well when you move up to the Pro. But kind of the great thing about Method is you can mix and match, I guess, licenses between contact management and CRM Pro. So you can kind of create the bundle that's right for your team in terms of what they need to do. Errol, I'm not sure if there's anything you want to add there.
Yeah, it is on a per user basis, and depending on what your individual's method users might require, you can choose to have packs added and removed. So, but we do base it on pro and basic just to make it easier for people to understand for an easier pricing model at the get-go. But then you can see it becomes even more. You can customize it even more depending on what you need. Also, the trial, the free 30-day trial gives you pro, and you can see exactly what you need before you even start paying anything. And customization, an actual customizing automated workflows, all of that comes with both. So that's just a natural part of Method. So when it comes to the sync, QuickBooks Sync, or when it comes to customizing the platform itself, all of that is with any of the pricing models. So great question. Thank you. Let's see if I think we're getting close to the end of questions here. So I'll cut it off there so that we can end on time. It's always good to end on time. Thank you so much to everyone for joining us today. Thank you to Elish. Thank you to Andy, to Method and SOS Inventory. And I hope you all have a wonderful weekend and have a great day. Take
Thanks,
care,
everyone.
Bye.
everyone.
Stay safe.
Thank you.
Bye bye.